Mayor Allen, it is 6:30, so you may commence the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, could I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Moore, that the regular meeting of Council of the Township of Springwater of February 17, 2021 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Due to COVID-19, Council has taken the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. As such, members of Council and staff are participating in this meeting electronically. It is possible to watch the streaming of this by going onto the website www.springwater.ca. During the meeting, you can listen to it as well by telephone by dialing 647-558-0588 and putting in the ID number 818-7501-4551 and the pound sign. This option is available during the meeting. And if you want to look at it after the meeting, you can view the live streaming by our Township's YouTube channel, which is accessible from the website. Council, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest this evening? All right, I don't see any. There are no deputations or presentations, so we go to question period. In question period, people can pose questions about items on the agenda, and they can contact the clerk by email or phone message, providing their name, address, and the stated question, or they can make a request to make oral submissions during the meeting via Zoom. As long as they make these requests by noon of the day of the meeting, so by noon today. Clerk Ainsworth, have there been any submissions received for tonight's meeting?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There has been one submission received from Hale Mahone of 33 Hillview Crescent in Midhurst regarding agenda item 8.2. And he states, I would like to thank the Heritage Advisory Committee, Township staff, and Council for their continued work on the Midhurst Community Center Heritage Designation process. Members of the Midhurst community and those who signed the petition to have the community center, to have the community center designated, appreciate your efforts to preserve this culturally significant community hub for years into the future. I also ask that Council support the motion listed in item 8.2 and approve the listed heritage attributes in order to move forward with the designation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the submission, Mr. Mahone. We'll now move on to 5.1, Minutes of Council. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Maud Chapman. Any discussions with respect to the minutes items 1 to 6? All right, the motion reads that the minutes of council listed herein be approved as presented. Minutes of the special meeting of council January 25th, 2021. Special meeting of council January 28th, 2021. The special meeting of council closed session on January 28th, 2021. Special meeting of council of February 3rd, 2021. The minutes of the special meeting of council closed session on February 3rd, 2021. And the minutes of the regular meeting of council on February 3rd, 2021. All those in favor? It's carried. Moving on to item 5.4, minutes of boards, committees, and organizations. Mover and seconder to get these on the floor, please. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore. Any questions or discussion about these minutes? The motion reads that the minutes of the boards, committees, and other organizations listed herein be received as information. The minutes of the Finance and Audit Advisory Committee meeting, May 8, 2019. Minutes of the Agricultural Advisory Committee meeting of November 28, 2019. And minutes of the Cultural Advisory Committee meeting of January 5th, 2021. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, we have correspondence and information items. Item 6. And I have a mover and seconder. I believe Councillor Maude Chapman is moving this. Seconder to get this on the floor, please. 6.1. Councillor Moore. All right. I will open it up to any questions or discussions. Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. As part of the Cultural Advisory Committee, we are the only township in the municipality area that have not officially recognized Black History Month in the month of February. And I know as per part of the procedure bylaw, we don't approve any proclamations. I can't say the word, but there is some leniency to this in the procedure bylaw. It says, notwithstanding the foregoing matters of significant interest and to the residents of the township may be considered for endorsement or proclamation. So my question is, wondering if we can recognize Black History Month for the remainder of February.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll turn that to Clerk Ainsworth before taking any other comments, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Councillor Chapman is correct. The procedure bylaw states that the township shall not consider proclamations, but there's also a caveat stating that if it is matters of significant interest and benefit to the residents, that the township may consider it. So it really is up to council whether or not council would like to proclaim February as Black History Month. Prior to this request for the beginning of the term, there have been no proclamations provided by council, but this would simply be just passing a resolution as seen on the agenda and having it circulated.
Other comments? Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you to the rest of the council. The proclamations are always a difficult decision or difficult discussion at the council table because if somebody votes not in favor of it, they feel that they are being seen as not supportive of the cause or proclamation that's being requested. I myself, I mean, we're 17 days into February. I think that when the Simcoe Pride came forward and has come forward in years prior, requesting that our municipality does join with Simcoe County in the proclamation, I would have no problem asking for delegation of the group to come forward. At this point, I stand behind our non-proclamation bylaw. I think that we are opening ourselves up here to, I mean, it doesn't do any harm, but at the same time, I'm not quite sure what is being asked of us other than to say that we support the proclamation.
Thank you. The comments on this? Councillor Maude Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And the only ask was, as per the Agriculture Advisory Committee, we did have a lady speaker come on the beginning of the month to speak about some things on the Black History Month and to advise us that we were the only township not involved in or recognized. And I understand the procedure bylaw, and I'm also support of not opening that book. I'm not sure if we do open it, I guess would have more groups come out, and then this part of the leniency would open up that can of worms. So that's where it came from. It came from the Cultural Advisory Committee. So I'm just putting it out there.
Thank you. Clerk Ainsworth, what would happen if we amended this to say Township of Springwater hereby recognizes February as Black History Month to avoid setting a precedent with respect to proclamations, which we've already established a bylaw about?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. That change can certainly be made. It could be done by friendly amendment if Councillor Chapman is in agreement with the change.
Councillor Mon Chapman, then Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And yes, I'm fine with that change.
Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Not to play devil's advocate here, but by doing what's suggested to still provide some recognition, do we not just simply open it up so that every other group can come before us and do exactly the same thing anyway? It kind of defeats the policy, which, you know, I can see why it was put in place, was to kind of put a standard there, so to speak, so that we either do it for everybody or we don't do it for anybody. So I'm kind of stuck here, Mayor Allen. I be making it a proclamation, or if you can maybe elaborate on the recognition part on it.
Well, I guess it goes to the definition of proclamation. So, Clerk Ainsworth, is there an accepted definition of proclamation?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. In the procedure bylaw, there is no definition of proclamation, but in its general terms, proclamation, if somebody came forward to the township asking for recognition of a certain day, we would classify that as a proclamation.
And we, in the past, have distinguished between flag raisings and proclamations, please.
Thank you. A flag raising, we do have a policy specific to flag raisings, which was created at the time that this provision was included within the township's procedure bylaw. Flag raisings are strictly that, just a request to raise a flag for a certain type of organization. And then a proclamation would be what you're seeing tonight, where the township officially recognizes a certain organization or a certain day of the year that might be celebrated by different groups.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you. Just as we did many, many years ago, or it feels like many, many years ago with the flag raising bylaw, I think that if our council wants to debate or propose change to our non-proclamation bylaw, that is a discussion that we as council are able to have. But again, we put bylaws in place so that we don't have the one-offs coming forward, so that we do create some sort of equity amongst the municipality. So I think that if council wants to debate or to put changes forth of our non-proclamation bylaw, we could do that. But at this point, I will stand behind our non-proclamation bylaw.
Thank you. Councillor Mon Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a question about the flag raising. So if we vote no for this for tonight, but for next year, if they wanted to raise a flag for Black History Month, we could at the township? Is that what I'm understanding?
They could always come forward and make a presentation or make an application, a request for a flag raising. There is a procedure for that, and they certainly could do that. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I am struggling with this. I'll be quite honest and frank with you. I know that we have a policy in place, and as per the deputy, I think we should be adhering to it. But I also have to admit that Black History Month is steeped in history, and it's been around for many, many years. It's considered part of the school curriculum, if I'm not mistaken. So there's lots of promotion and whatnot for it. And given the turmoil that we've seen for the last couple of years, I can certainly see why we might want to recognize it. But like I say, I'm stuck in the middle here between what our policy says, and my fear is if we do move forward with it, that we're going to find ourselves doing this at numerous meetings, having a debate on whether somebody's going to be recognized and somebody's not. So just want to let you folks know that I'm struggling with this, but unfortunately, I have to kind of say that the deputy may be on, because our policy is in place to prevent us from entering into these debates, I guess.
Okay, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you. So I would just like to agree with the deputy on the non-proclamation piece, but I would like to go ahead with the recognition if we're able to do that. So recognize Black History Month, but as a non-proclamation, and so we don't have to adjust our bylaws. Is that possible?
Yeah, I believe Councillor Ma was willing to make an amendment. Coordinator Dean, you've just come on. Did you want to make a comment?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you to Councillor Moore and the rest of council. I was just going to comment and let you know that our communications team has sent out a post or multiple posts this month that do share the Ontario government and other provincial posts that are put out to the recognition of Black History Month. So we will provide under the current guidelines communication policy, and we will share posts from other provincial, I might not be saying this totally correct, but other provincial or government bodies through our posts. So there has been posts on Facebook and social media relating to that. And as Councillor Ma Chapman noted, the Making Change organization did do a presentation to the Cultural Advisory Committee at the beginning of the month, and did let us know that we were the only municipality in Simcoe County that didn't do a proclamation, even though staff and Councillor Ma did let them know that we do have the policy that we do not do proclamations, and that is a standard policy.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Ma Chapman is agreeable to a friendly amendment to replace the word proclaims with recognizes, and I believe Councillor Moore is seconding that friendly amendment. All those in favor of that amendment? Any opposed? That is carried. And so we have to read the main motion, Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. As it was Councillor Chapman's motion, she could just make that change without an official amendment to it. So you can go ahead when you are ready to vote on the motion with the word recognize versus proclamation.
Okay, I think everybody's aware, so let's vote now. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to 6.2. This is a funding request by Aggregate Properties Assessment Top Aggregate Producing Municipalities of Ontario. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma Chapman. We'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Moore and then Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to the CAO. CAO Schmidt, I would like if you could provide me a bit of history with this TAPMO, is it TAPMO organization? And I'd like to know if we are a part of this organization, or is this long-standing? There is a time limit to their request, and I really have no understanding of what they're asking of us.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Moore. So, Councillor Moore, it's my understanding, and I believe the township has been a member or a party to this group for quite some time, and I'm just trying to come up to speed on it myself. My understanding is the meeting I attended, I believe it was last year at AMO. They were talking about how this association, if you will, is not happy, I guess, with how aggregate properties in Ontario are currently assessed, and they feel that there's a lot of, I guess, property taxes that are being left on the table, if you will, and or shifted to the residential properties in municipalities. So anytime, obviously, there's a burden of taxes if we're not collecting enough on the from the aggregate properties in this case, then obviously that gets shifted onto residential or commercial and industrial. So that's essentially what's happening here. Is they want to hire, my understanding is, a third party to proceed with a review of this, and they're seeking all the members of TAPMO funding in the amount of approximately $2,100. to proceed with this. Now, I know Director Radigan's on the call here, and so I've asked her to check with staff in finance just to see what level of impact this would have on spring, or what it has had on spring water. And I'm not sure if it's significant, but I'll maybe let her speak if the mayor will let her do so.
Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to members of council. Just want to reiterate CAO Smith's comments. They are accurate. We are a member of the top aggregate producing municipalities of Ontario, and they are requesting a financial support in the amount of $2,100. And that really ultimately essentially is to lobby provincial governments as well as MPAC to reestablish assessment evaluation in terms of aggregate properties. The impact to the township has been minimal. MPAC changed the assessment valuation for gravel pits and quarries as part of the 2016 assessments update, and that impact was approximately $25,000. So just reiterating what CAO Smith had said previously, that is not necessarily an impact to the township's taxation revenue. It is a shift in the tax burden to the residential tax class. However, it is minimal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm confused here. Like, I mean, they're complaining they're not paying enough taxes. It's like, I don't know. Did anybody take the temperature or something? It's like, I find that their beef is with MPAC. Like, they should be making a delegation to go and speak to MPAC and say, hey, I want to pay more money. So like, but to put up $2,100, I have a hard time doing that. I can't support that.
Thank you, Councillor Cabral.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor Allen. Comment with regards to the letter itself. It kind of came to us, I got to admit, it took me a bit aback because the author seems to think that the person who's reading it has some background knowledge. So it would have been nice if there had been something come along with it, because it kind of put me in the position where I had to go online and kind of try and figure out what this was all about. I initially thought, no, I didn't think it was worth it. But to be quite frank, I think we should pay it. And the reasons why I say that is twofold. Number one, they did do a presentation at Roma back in, I think, 2018. It could have even been 2017. At that particular time, they were talking about the aggregate fees that are paid to municipalities. And according to the chart, we were getting, or municipalities out of the breakdown per ton was 6 cents. And they compared that to other provinces where it's upwards of 25 cents. And they were trying to say that they wanted to convince the provincial government to raise that particular aspect of the aggregates so that the municipality would get more than 6 cents, but as much as 25 to 30 cents per ton. So there is some substantial, I think, funds there, considering how much aggregate is going to be taken out moving forward. And our township does have a fair number of aggregate pits. So I guess that's why we're a member. The other thing I found was that back in August of this year, some of the members from County of Wellington, along with other members of TAPMO, met with Stan Choi, parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Finance, to discuss the need to improve how aggregate properties are taxed across Ontario. So this is the second part, under an equitable valuation system. Anyway, I'll just read this two paragraphs here. MPAC's current property tax valuation structure unfairly sees active gravel pits incurring less property tax than single-family homes and small businesses. It also leads to properties that are located in the same areas and are similar to gravel pits receiving vastly different property valuations, which contradicts the principle of fairness and transparency underpinning our taxation system. With similar properties should be treated and taxed equally. Arbitrarily classifying gravel pits as among the lowest forms of farmland sets an artificial cap on these producers' valuations and keeps their property taxes well below what they should be paying. In turn, residents and businesses are subsidizing the break that gravel producers are getting. So that's the key part that I found quite interesting. And there's also apparently something in the Aggregates Act that ties MPAC's hands. That's why the provincial government seems to be the one that has to step forward and be lobbied in order to do those two components. Either take the exception out of the Aggregates Act or provide MPAC with direction to change their present taxation or assessment structure. The top aggregate producing municipalities of Ontario are collaborating to work with industry partners. There's aggregate people involved in this too. It could be the ones that are not necessarily own the pits, but certainly the ones that are buying the material, spreading the material, and moving the material that are on board with it as well. And what they're talking about is that the industry partners and provincial decision makers need to start developing a sustainable plan for aggregate extraction. Ontario's consumption of aggregate resources helps fuel steady economic growth, and the demand for aggregate products is estimated to be 4 billion tons over the next 25 years. So the way I'm seeing this now is maybe it is appropriate to spend $2,100. After all, we are members of this organization. I think if we opted into it at the beginning, there must have been valid reasons for the township to do so. And I guess after 11 years, because I saw some stuff that was dated back in 2010 or 2011, they haven't had much luck. And I think maybe some of the municipalities that are participating as members kick in a little bit of money, this $2,100. If they're successful, we're going to reap the rewards moving forward. So that's my position. Initially, I said no. After reading this stuff all over and seeing where this organization came from, I think it's probably in our best interests to say yes.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. When I first read this, I was left obviously with the impression, yes, we should be getting more tax dollars. MPAC should be valuing the pits at a higher level so we get increase our tax revenue from them. My first thought was, or my second thought was that they want the money to give it to a group called Upstream Strategy Group to go and lobby the provincial government. I would have more faith in at least initially, to have our county representatives and our county warden make a delegation to the minister on behalf of all the municipalities, rather than have a private lobby group try to do it on behalf of municipalities. I think that if I was the minister anyway, I would have more time for other elected officials to come forward representing their municipalities with this problem, rather than have an outside lobby group asking for time and presenting their business case. So I'm on the fence on this. If our CAO or our Director of Finance think this is a good move, we should be doing it. I'll go either way. I'll support the majority of council. But as I say, my initial thought was that our county representatives should be making a delegation to do this first, rather than spending money to go to an outside private agency to make a business case for us.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I go to Councillor Moore, CEO Schmidt or Director Radigan, do you have any further thoughts other than what has been presented on this? Director Radigan.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to members of council. Ultimately, the documentation was provided in short order, so hence why there was not a report attached. But we haven't seen how many municipalities are participating. We do know of one that has declined to participate. Ultimately, it depends on the impact on the taxpayer, and based on my opinion, it is minimal impact to the taxpayers of Springwater Township, and so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Director Radigan, when you say minimal impact, can you expand upon that a little bit?
Absolutely. Through you, Mayor Allen, to members of council. So back in 2016, when MPAC did update their 2016 assessment, the impact to the township was $25,000 as a result of the change in assessment valuation to aggregate properties such as quarries and pits. So that $25,000 would have been, the tax burden would have been shifted onto the residential tax class. And the residential tax class is the largest class in Springwater. Ultimately, that spread would have been minimal per household.
Okay, I saw some cards up, Councillor Moore and then Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. The organization then, TATMO, from what I'm hearing, has been around for a decade or so. If we do decide to move forward with the $2,100, I would like to see some commitment attached whereby they have to provide us updates or who's involved in this group. I don't want to see our $2,100 go out the window with nothing coming back. So I feel like their correspondence up till now has been kind of lacking. If not, please correct me. So I want to ensure that this money is just not going out and nothing coming back.
Thank you, Councillor Cabral.
Am I still on, Mayor Allen? I think I am, sorry. I guess the way I'm looking at it is we know it's been ongoing for some time, and we know that they've presented to Roma, so they have been bending the ear of the politician. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be working, and we have those windows of opportunity where we get to do that. I think the idea here is that they want to apply ongoing pressure, regular pressure, lobbying pressure, and I could see that that being beneficial to us. And maybe $25,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but to be quite honest, we did $2,100 doesn't sound like a lot either. If the trade-off is that we're going to increase the taxation on those aggregate pits to the point where maybe there could be substantial returns to the township. I did find the scale from the Roma meeting that the presentation was made when I was speaking about the current amount per ton. This is part and partial to this lobbying. I believe it was 6 cents per ton to the lower tier municipality, which is us. And the proposed amount that they want to do is increase it to 30 cents. So I think if we're talking about that, that's a fairly substantial increase. So whatever we get now, maybe CAO Schmidt had some figures last time about what kind of money the township was getting from aggregate. But if it were to go up to 30 cents and we were successful in helping these folks move along, that's a fairly significant figure there to go from 6 cents to 30. So I don't know if CAO Schmidt has that number from what we got from aggregates last year or not, but I'm just looking at the number and I just see that as a very significant increase coming to township if they were successful.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I think too, it's noting that the tippage fees and the tax rates are, while it does incorporate both as a revenue towards the municipality, I believe that the argument here is that they're looking to increase the tax rate. I think that we do have multiple groups that come forward every year. I know at the county OMAFRA, and we have agricultural committees that are communities that would like to see a different taxation on them. So I think to put money behind a third-party lobbyist is not something that I will support. And if through Councillor Han, if we'd like to amend it to have Mayor Allen work with Warden Cornell to move forward to our provincial MP or MPPs, that to me is an avenue for us to exhaust first before spending taxpayers' money on a third party to look into this further.
Councillor Cabral. Oh, let me just, CEO Schmidt has his hand up first. Go ahead, CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just wanted to clarify, it's my understanding, based on the letter and based on the one meeting that I attended about a year or so ago, that this is just strictly related to the assessment piece. It's not related to the tippage fee at this stage. Now, doesn't mean that there couldn't be that tag along at some point, but my understanding is this is strictly related to the assessment piece. And I'll put in a little bit of more information, maybe not in the same context, but it's no different than if some of you may recall the golf course appeal that happened in 1998, I think it was, with regards to Glen Abbey and how golf courses were being assessed. And that took probably a good 8 to 10 years to resolve. And in my former life with another municipality south of here, the impact to us was over $2 million. So much more substantial than what we're talking about here. But again, just to clarify, it's my understanding is that this is simply, again, the assessment piece. They're not talking about tippage at this stage. And to answer Councillor Cabral's question about revenues on the tippage, I'm going to be off the numbers a little bit, but I believe over the last couple of years it's definitely increased. I think a couple of years ago it might have been 80,000, and maybe last year was around 130,000. But I don't know if Director Radican can confirm those numbers, but it's in around that ballpark that we've been receiving revenues on the tippage portion. So I'll leave it at that, and if there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Director Radigan, any further clarification before I go back to Councillor Cabral?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Cabral. I will confirm those numbers and provide an update to you via email if you are agreeable to that.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral, did you have a final comment? You're muted, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you. No, it won't be necessary to dig for the exact numbers. I just wanted to know how that 6 cents would play into 30 cents. And if it was $130,000 on 6 cents, then we're talking some substantial coin if that aggregate rate per tone does go up. I just wanted to point out that this is a municipal initiative that started in Wellington County. Wellington County basically was saying that these aggregate pits are not paying their fair share and they're being taxed at an incorrect rate. They should be taxed at a higher rate. That's where this started. And then other municipalities that had aggregate pits, such as ourselves, agreed. And that's how this started to move forward. It wasn't a private individual or a group of people who owned aggregate pits. It was actually the municipality was seeing that it was unfair, and that's why they decided to step forward and try and convince the provincial government, and that's why we joined up with them. So just leave it at that, just so that we're all clear that this was not a private enterprise that started doing this. This was actually started in Wellington County, and other municipalities joined up with them to create this little organization.
Right. Well, I could ask at the county to get further information and ask some of the other mayors whether they've been approached and what the reaction has been. Clerk Aidsworth, you had your card up.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Currently, the only motion that's on the table is to receive the information. If a member of council would like to propose that the township fund the $2,100, they would have to propose an amendment to this motion.
Councillor Cabral looks like he's wanting to propose the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To be frank, I just assume propose the amendment. If it passes, great, and we can move forward. If it doesn't pass, then I will be looking to my Simcoe County counterparts on council to see if they can press it forward at a different level in a different way. But it sounds to me that they haven't had much fortune doing it thus far. So I would like to propose an amendment that we receive it, and also that we agree to fund it in the amount in the letter. I think it's $2,100.
Yep.
Was there also a deadline on the letter? I think there was some time constraints.
Yes. Yes. CEO Schmidt.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Through you to Councillor Cabral. I believe it was February 24th. They were looking for an answer from all parties. So
Okay.
next Wednesday.
I would suspect that if they don't get substantial municipalities buying in to help them with this, that they're not going to move forward with it anyway. They won't have sufficient funds. But if every municipality turns them down, I think we're against the bricks as far as having a small organization to try and move things forward for us.
Councillor Hannah, were you seconding this?
No, I just had a question because it's already been brought up at the second last paragraph above the signature. It just asks for a yes or no response. And as was pointed out by the CEO, by February the 24th. And the interesting part, it's not going to the mayor who asked for it. It's going to the Donald North Dumfries, I think it says. So I'm just not sure who wants the response, whether it's another municipality or this is the private agency that they're trying to give money to. Thank you.
CEO Schmidt?
Mr. Mayor, the individual, the address, email address that's on there is actually, I believe, the clerk and or municipal representative at that municipality where the mayor, Susan Foxton, I believe, is the mayor of that municipality. And so I believe it's a member of staff who has that address, email address.
Okay, so people are familiar with the amendment. Take a vote now. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. We do need a seconder for Councillor Cabral's amendment.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Ritchie? Okay, all those in favor? I'm asking for in favor, and there are 2 in favor, so opposed. That is defeated. So again, is it necessary to go back to a main motion in this instance, Clerk Ainsworth, or can we move on?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, so you would need to now call the vote on the main motion, which we do have a mover and seconder for.
Councillor Moore, do you want to comment?
Yes, please, Mayor Allen. So do we need to amend the main motion to include going back to county to ask that you discuss with the other mayors and see their position, or are we past that?
I don't think so. I'll go ahead and make inquiries and get a follow-up to the council.
Okay.
Okay, and we have a mover and seconder for the main motion, I believe. So all those in favor of the main motion that the correspondence from top aggregate producing municipalities of Ontario, TAPMO, regarding aggregate property assessments be received. All those in favor? That is carried. Next is item 6.3, and this arose from the Agricultural Advisory Committee. Mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Moore and Councillor Ma Chapman. This was a letter. This was discussed at the agricultural meeting, and a letter was written, which you saw attached to the agenda by the chair, David Spring, and so it was just pulling this to receive it and for information, pretty much. So I comment, Councillor Cabral.
Yes, Mayor Allen, I was just curious if it might be possible for, I don't know about the rest of council, but certainly myself, just reading over this letter, and it sounds like it's a fairly significant thing that's going on, whether or not there might be some more information, or if something might be prepared by Mr. Spring or somebody else that might provide us as council a little bit more information on this. We may be in a position to lend more support to it if we knew more about what's going on with this.
I can, through discussion at the committee and my subsequent discussion with David Spring, a little bit of the background. In 2018, much of the Ontario corn crop was extremely high in vomitoxin, it was called, toxic to some animals, especially hogs. And the only market for the corn was renewable fuels. And there are hundreds of thousands of acres that could have been used for renewable fuels. The new regulations would disqualify any farms that have had improvements from selling grain for renewable fuels. And that puts them at a significant disadvantage with respect to this element compared to their US counterparts, where there are less restrictions and is competition to the Canadian farmers with respect to this item as well as other items of agriculture. Canadian farmers already have the carbon tax, which is putting tremendous pressure on the farmers. And so this new regulation would immediately disqualify lands in Ontario from being able to use this corn product for a fuel where as I say, the Americans can do it. So that's a bit more information that I was able to get from David Spring on this. I would suggest that if you have any further questions, he'd be glad to further describe the details of the issue. Okay, so the motion reads that the correspondence from Chair David Spring of the Agriculture Advisory Committee regarding Clean Fuels Act be received. Did you have a further question, Deputy Mayor Coughlin? Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just really want to know how council feels about just receiving this letter, because it sounds to me like being a rural and agricultural community that maybe there's more that we can do on behalf of our local farmers in support of what Mr. Spring is identifying here and what you've alluded to when you were explaining it to us. That's all. I'm just wondering if it might be appropriate to make an amendment here.
Okay, Councillor Hanna?
Thank you. I'm glad Councillor Cabral brought this forward, because I would have felt uncomfortable just leaving this. From what you've said, Mayor, it sounds like something that we should be trying to rectify. So whatever we can do, if it's a motion or ask Mr. Spring to make a deputation or something that we can do to support this, I'm all in favor of that.
Okay, so put forth an amendment then, Councillor Cabral, please.
My amendment, I guess, would be pretty simple, that we receive the correspondence and that we ask that the Agricultural Committee or David Spring come before council and make a deputation so that we can better understand the situation and possibly draft up a letter of support for council to endorse, and then possibly once we do that to send that out to other municipalities with a lot of farmers and agricultural activity going on, that they might also be able to lend their support. It seems to me, based on what you've said, that I don't know what they're going to do with this feed if they can't give it to their hogs, and then they also can't make ethanol with it. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So it doesn't seem fair or reasonable.
And Councillor Hanna, you're seconding this amendment? Yes. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? That is carried. And then we have a mover and seconder for the main motion. And so the main motion is that the correspondence from Chair David Spring, Agriculture Advisory Committee regarding Clean Fuels Act be received, and that he be requested to make a further delegation as to how council might be able to further support this initiative. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, action report. First item, print advertising options, finance, print advertising options. Mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Cabral and Councillor Moore. Okay, our communications officer, Odette, is on the line and open for any questions or discussions? There are four options that have been proposed. So I'll open it for discussion. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you. I like option one, continue services with the Springwater News. It's a business in Springwater Township, and I think we've got reasonably good service from them for my last 10 years on council.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. The only comment I have to make is with respect to who our audience is with the Springwater link. I think option one is the best option. And the reason for that is if we're trying to reach Springwater residents, Springwater News goes to every single home. It's delivered by the mail. It doesn't get chewed up by snow blowers. It doesn't inconvenience people having to go out and pick it up. And the other thing that is falling short with the Barrie Advance is they do not deliver to every residence in Springwater Township, and they haven't for a couple of years probably. So I think even though their readership might be 50,000+, they're not capturing every home in Springwater Township, and Springwater News does. Springwater News has local stories with local input from all of our communities. And also most of our businesses tend to advertise in the Springwater News too. So, but my main reason for saying stick with number one is that Springwater News goes to every residence in Springwater Township. The Barrie Advance does not.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moy, you had a card up?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was just going to actually say exactly what Councillor Hannah and Councillor Cabral. I think we need to stick with option one. Plus, we support the local business. And I know everyone, basically everyone does read the Springwater News. So I'd hate to take that away from our residents. They do look forward to reading it on a bi-weekly basis. Thank you.
Okay, I see CEO Schmidt and Communication Officer Odette on the line. Any comments with respect to what's been discussed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify, and our communications officer can assist, but I know there was comments made earlier about the Barrie Advanced, and I just want to make sure that we're clear, is that in the conversations that we've had with them, they have indicated that they do cover all of Springwater. Rightly or wrongly, that's what they say. I can't confirm that. That's just what we're being told, that their coverage area is all of Springwater. It's further to that, it's my understanding that there's a number of individuals or residents that have opted out of receiving the Barrie Advance, and maybe that's where some confusion might be. But again, further to the conversations that our communications officer has had with the Barrie Advance, they have indicated that all of Springwater does get covered. But again, it's ultimately council's decision on what you want to do here. Just wanted to clarify that point.
Nicole, any further comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to, through your worship to council. So as CEO Schmidt indicated, their coverage area does cover all of Springwater Township. There may be instances where residents have requested to not receive the paper, whether they don't read it or it just goes right into the recycling. So those homes are not delivered to. The other instance might be in condominium buildings or apartment buildings. Some buildings where they do have access, they deliver to the front lobby or where the mail would be delivered, and they leave a stack there. In other buildings, they're not permitted access to them. So in those instances, there are community newspaper boxes throughout the township where people are able to pick up a copy for free if they do not get it delivered to their home.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I know that the Barrie Advance will tell everyone that they provide coverage to an extremely large area. I can tell you with great certainty, no one on the 11th, none of my neighbors are getting the Springwater News, not the Springwater News, the Barrie Advance, and they haven't for going on probably 2, maybe even longer than that years. And I suspect that there are other areas in Springwater Township as well that are not receiving the Barrie Advance because they simply aren't delivering it to these addresses. not because the people are saying that they don't want it. And if someone at Very Advanced wants to give me a call, I'd be more than happy to ask them if they could tell me the last time that they delivered to anybody on the 10th, Floss Road 10 West, between say County Road 29 and 27. I'd be very interested to know the last time they had someone drop off a paper in this area. The thing with the Springwater News, it's delivered by Canada Post. It's delivered promptly. Everybody gets it because it goes right in their mailbox because it's considered mail. So I'm only interested in making sure that all of our residents get the information that we're trying to put out there. And unfortunately, the Very Advanced does not do that as well as Springwater News does. So
Thank you. Councillor Moore, then Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Communications Officer Odette. Option 3 allows us to continue with the Springwater News every 2 weeks, and then Very Advanced. Is it every 2 weeks that you're asking, or every week? I'm a bit confused about option 3, and I'm sort of leaning that way only because the southern part of our township does regularly still get the Very Advanced. Maybe the northern part doesn't, I'm not quite sure. But there are big projects that I think residents of this side of Barrie especially are very interested in that Springwater engages. So I think that we do need to be a presence. I don't know if it's regularly or, like you say, maybe for option 1 we add monthly, but I think that we do need to let our partners or our neighbors, keep in touch with what we're doing.
Nicole, can you clarify or just review option 3 and how that might work?
Yep.
Thank
Through
you.
Your worship to Councillor Moore. Option 3 would be to advertise on a weekly basis. So 2 weeks a month would be in the Springwater News and 2 weeks a month would be in the Very Advanced. The Very Advanced does publish weekly. So by offsetting our advertising, we would have a weekly presence in either of the papers, so one or the other.
So in that scenario, the Springwater link would continue in one paper, or would it be split? How would you see that working, Nicole?
Through you, Your Worship. So for week 1, we could do the Springwater News. Week 2, it would be the Very Advanced. Week 3, the Springwater News, and then week 4 would be the Very Advanced.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. Understanding that right now we spend, I guess, approximately 32,000 with Springwater. We have 40,000 for print, which is our budget right now. So I would not support a budget increase in print advertising. I think that if we can redistribute it to encapsulate or incorporate the bi-weekly in the Advance as well, I think that that would give, like we said, our southern or other readership an opportunity to be heard. I'm also curious if there's an opportunity when we had these questions through Recreation, we went out with a Survey Monkey, just asking residents, and we did, I think the last one we heard from about 300 people, which was good, but I think our online presence has been increased since then. So it'd be quite interesting. I think there are a lot of other ways, I guess, people are receiving their information. Under no circumstances am I suggesting we pull out of print media, but I'm wondering if we maybe, I guess it said that we haven't changed our budget in 10 years, take a look at how residents want their news. If they want more of an online presence, if they want us in both papers, that would be of interest to me as well. I would support option 3 as long as there's no budget increase. And if it's possible to go and maybe there's already plans in the works with communication for that, I would be very interested on how residents do want to hear from us. I know that there's some municipalities are using ping, which is a two-way, like, hey, there's a pothole here and there's a map that just drops it. So there is technology out there. So I think there might be an opportunity here to move forward even more than the 1 week here, 1 week there.
Okay, Nicole, I'll let you comment, then Councillor Cabral.
Through you, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. A communication survey was completed about 2 years ago for the municipality. Unfortunately, it seems that the way people wish to be communicated to seems to be very subjective. So where you have some people saying that they prefer the print media, others are saying they prefer online, whereas again, others might prefer to hear things on the radio or through an online newspaper. So it really didn't provide any clarity in terms of the way in which people like to receive their communications, which is why the township does use such a variety of marketing and communication methods.
Okay, Councillor Cabral, Moore, and Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a couple more comments, please. I think residents are accustomed to seeing the Springwater link in the Springwater News. It comes out bi-weekly. With respect to changing it or alternating it, what you're in effect doing is you're saying that some people are going to get the Springwater News and the Barrie Advance, but some residents aren't. So some residents will still be disadvantaged if you go to the Barrie Advance, whether it's every second week or every third week. The only way that you're going to get that print media into the hands of every resident in Springwater Township is to continue with the Springwater News. If you're going to switch over every second week, then the residents are going to miss out every second week, all of the residents that do not have or do not get the Barrie Advance delivered to their house. This is the Barrie Advance's issue. This is not a residential issue for our residents. They might want the Barrie Advance to be delivered, but if the Barrie Advance has chosen not to deliver it to them, then I really struggle with council as a whole providing the Barrie Advance the wherewithal to put our ad in the Barrie Advance, knowing full well that there will be residents that will not be able to get it. And we've got lots of seniors who do read the Springwater News. That is their means of communication for knowing what goes on in our community. All the little stories, the baseball, the school, the high school stuff that goes on, it's all printed in the Springwater News. And I guess I fear that if we end up going with the Barrie Advance for our print media, I certainly don't agree with going weekly, because that to me just means double the budget. But even on a bi-weekly one, if you swapped it back and forth, it's going to be confusing for the people in the community to know which paper's got what coming this week. But you're still going to miss out on the folks that are not getting the Barrie Advance delivered to their homes. So I think that's what we as council have to recognize, is it's not a matter of who wants to read what. It's a matter of who's going to get the information in their hands. 100% of all the residents of Springwater Township, or 97 or 96% of the residents, when the Barrie Advance has it in their paper. So I can't vote for anything other than number one. That's where I'm at.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Communications Officer Odette, I'm curious to know if you've inquired with Barrie Today. I subscribe to Barrie Today on my social media, and they just, of course, just do highlights, but they do have an online newspaper. So I'm wondering what you've been able to do as far as research goes about accessibility to Barrie Today, and I'm not even sure if it's free to everyone or not.
Nicole.
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Moore. Barrie Today is an option for online advertising, and it's something that we can examine in the future. This report speaks specifically to the print advertising strategy and what we are doing with that. So I haven't examined Barrie Today in detail at this point, but it is something that more people are moving towards in terms of online newspapers. So it is something in the future that we would like to examine.
Thank you. And maybe we could look at that with Deputy Mayor Coughlin's suggestion too. Anyway, thank you.
Councillor Hannah.
Thank you. Perry would probably remember this, but back in 2010, before we got on council, the Springwater News was not used by the township for a period of time. And then I believe they were putting the articles in the Examiner, which doesn't exist anymore anyway, and then in 2010, or just before 2010, they returned from the Examiner, which I believe they were in, back to the Springwater News. So I'm not sure why the change initially to leave Springwater went to the Examiner and then came back. I'm not clear on that. But my other point being is that I get both papers and I enjoy both papers for different reasons. My question on number 3 would be, if we put, for example, the link in the Barrie Advance, would that same link be repeated again when on the other, the odd week, if you like, would it be repeated again in the Springwater News? If it was, that would sort of answer Councillor Cabell's question, I believe.
Nicole?
Through your worship to Councillor Hannah. For the most part, a lot of the ads would be similar to what you would see week to week. That being said, certain advertisements do have expiry dates, things like job postings, meetings, those sorts of things. So there might be changes week to week. It would just depend on what's being included. However, some of our longer running programs, things that we're trying to get the word about, would be included in the edition week to week.
Follow on, Councillor Hannah?
So my thinking there is that if you didn't go to the Barrie Advance on the odd week when the Springwater News was not being printed, that link, if you like, wouldn't go out to anybody. But if you put it out that week in the Barrie Advance and repeat it again in the Springwater News, which it would have been happening anyway, because you wouldn't have been putting it in the Barrie Advance on the odd week. I don't know if you understand my question, but if you were to repeat it in both papers, it would answer any questions why all the residents in Springwater would not be able to get access or the information because you went to the Barrie Advance for the odd week.
Nicole?
Through your worship to Councillor Hannah, yes, maybe not most of, but a lot of these same advertisements would be included in both papers. So it's unless there was a specific timeline, things like sometimes we have tighter timelines for job postings, or just trying to think if there's a meeting that gets scheduled at the last minute, those sorts of things. It might not be in both editions, but for the most part, a lot of the information would be the same.
Okay, sorry, I just have to follow up quickly. If you didn't go to the Barrie Advance at all, and you just did it every 2 weeks in the Springwater News, there would not change any delay for the information that you wouldn't be able to put out anyway. So by putting it in the paper, in both papers, I think would accomplish the problem, I believe, anyway.
Okay, any other new comments then, Councillor Cabral?
Well, just to speak to Councillor Hannah, I hate to say this, but if we're going to publish in both papers, it's going to double the costs. so there's that doesn't work. It's either, in my opinion, you're either going to go with the Barrie Advance or you're going to go with the Springwater News.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I think that was my question earlier. The opportunity to remain in the Springwater News. I think that if we miss an edition, our residents are going to wonder why we're being silent. So I think that we do need to remain as present in every issue of the Springwater News. So being weeks 1 and week 3 of a month, but using some of that budget that we are using right now and reallocate it. And now we have a presence in a paper in Springwater every week. And then we can move from there. I think that there's no additional costs to the residents. And if there's an opportunity to reach our members of the southern part of our municipality too, who may choose that as their option, I think that it's definitely worth taking a look at.
Would that, Nicole, be captured in option 2? In other words, getting some exposure in both papers with no increased cost.
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Coughlin, if we were to continue with the Springwater News on a bi-weekly basis, are you suggesting that we continue 2 editions a month with the Springwater News and then 1 edition a month with the Barrie Advance? Was that the suggestion? Sorry.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin, what was that you're thinking?
No, my apologies. No, I think that if there's going to be consistency, I mean, even once a month, if that's the prerogative of the communications department, I think that getting a consistent message into the Advance and Barrie would be great. If it's once a month that the communications decides to go with to begin with, that's fine. If it's twice a month, what I'm suggesting is that if we need to drive more traffic to the website, I think that we need to just remain visual in the Springwater News and provide residents with the information they're seeking, but attempt to somehow come up with a plan so that we can also be in the Advance for the same money. So I'm not sure exactly how that looks, but I think that Communication Officer Odette can come up with a brilliant plan to make that happen for us.
Okay, final comments, Councillor Cabral and Councillor Hannah.
Actually, one's going to be a question, the second one will be a comment, but if our focus is to distribute this information, I don't understand why we need 2 vehicles to do it in the first place. If the point is to provide our residents with the link information, 1 vehicle is more than sufficient, or are we actually trying to just provide the Barrie Advance with some taxpayer dollars? I guess I'm struggling a bit with that. The other thing is that I do know that there have been times, maybe I'm mistaken, where we have placed certain advertisements in the Barrie Advance, not the Springwater Link, but other ones dealing more with planning and that kind of thing. Has that happened at all this past year?
Nicole, can you answer that?
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Cabral. Usually those one-off placements in the Barrie Advance are project specific. So they, as you stated, they're typically related to planning projects and those sorts of things. I don't believe we have had any placement in the Barrie Advance throughout this past year. I see Director Spagnell's on the line. Maybe he might be able to provide a bit more clarity on that.
Director Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through to Councillor Cabral. The only time that that planning might utilize the Advance is where there's any applications that might straddle the City of Barrie boundary. So for example, there may be some notification from cell tower providers who are looking to conduct open houses that may include the Advance in those types of circulations. But for the most part, we utilize the link and we utilize the Springwater News. So the communications officer is correct that there might be some instances, but it's not a regular practice.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you. I maintain my original suggestion that we stay with option 1.
Okay, I think that we have the mover and seconder, Councillor Cabral, Councillor Hannah, selecting option 1. And that is that the report from the communications officer regarding print advertising options dated February 17, 2021 be received, and that the township continue with the ongoing services of the Springwater News on a bi-weekly basis and does not engage the regular services of the Barrie Advance. All those in favor?
I'll be asking for a recorded vote, Mayor Allen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Recorded vote was requested by Councillor Cabral. When I state your name, please state yes or no. Councillor Cabral?
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie?
Yes.
Councillor Chapman?
Yes.
Councillor Moore?
No.
Councillor Hannah?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
No.
And Mayor Allen?
No.
That motion is carried.
Okay, moving on to 7.2, DocuPet save and Happy Fund Partner Program. Mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma, Chapman. Okay, once again, we have several options. So I will open it up for questions, comments, discussion. We have bylaw officer Kellington on the line. Go ahead. No cards? Okay, which one? There we go. Councillor Ma and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I like option one. Since we couldn't have the K9 from the last meeting, I do like option one. I like how we would support the cruelty to animals. I think that's very, very important, and that we were part of the Barrie Pound before. So I am supportive of option number one.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. Sorry, I thought when you spoke to Officer Kellington that you were asking for her to speak first. That's why I was waiting. My apologies. And I would just like to know from Officer Kellington if there was one specifically, I guess, that was being recommended over another. I do know the OSPCA does do a lot of fundraising that you can hear of it. So if there's an opportunity, if Everett just doesn't have the same, like to me, any of this donation on this behalf is going to, I think it's going to do the same thing in a different area. So if there's one that benefits more pets in our area, then that's great. But if not, to me, I think it's a great initiative and I'm in favor of any of them.
Officer Kellington.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. We don't have, staff doesn't have a recommendation. It is up to council to make that decision. We have used all three organizations within Springwater. Our residents have used all three of them. So it is completely up to council for their decision.
Okay, all right, Councillor Moss put forward option one. Any further discussion before we vote on option one then? Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Sorry, and I guess just to prolong this meeting as long as possible, my apologies to council. I myself, I think I would like to see it go to Everett just because they are a smaller organization and they may not receive as many donations. And this is an opportunity that might do some good or might be stretched to go a little bit further with their organization. So if Councillor Chapman wants it to go to Barrie, I'm fine with that as well. But if there's an appetite from council to see it go to a smaller community, I would be in favor of that.
So that's option two, Everett. Further discussion? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious whether or not we have interaction with the folks in Barrie, or do we have interaction with the folks in Everett, or not?
Officer Kellington.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Cabral. We do have interaction with the OSPCA in Barrie, as well as the one in Everett. Currently our K9 Pound, they do send a lot of animals that haven't been sent home for adoption through the Everett program there through the Humane Society. So we do use both.
Okay. All right, I'll go back to Councillor Ma Chapman. Do you still want to select option one? Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Mayor Allen. I do like option one, but I also like option two also. I'm in favor of whatever council wants to do. I just like the thought of the cruelty to animals and that we have used them. But I do understand they probably do get a lot more donations than Everett, and I'm happy for whatever council wants to do.
Okay, let's select option two then, and so that the report from the Senior Municipal Law Enforcement Officer regarding the DocuPet Safe and Happy Fund Partner Program dated February 17, 2021 be received, and that council approve donation proceeds received through DocuPet Save and Happy Fund Partner Program to the Alliston and District Humane Society located in Everett. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Moving on to 7.3, the Barrie Kennel and Obedience Club overnight camping at Tree Nursery Sports Park. Mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore. Open for discussion questions. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you to council. I would like to see option number 2 moved. I believe, making sure I'm on the right one here. Yes, option number 2. I think that we do have neighboring campgrounds, and if that's what it takes to keep this in Springwater, if not, I think that opening up our Tree Nursery Park as a campground is going to, I'm assuming most baseball tournaments would love to not have to leave either. So I think that we're going to see a lot of that happening, or could potentially see a lot of that happening. But I think I would like to see option 2 put forward.
Councillor Maude Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and I agree with Deputy Mayor. I like option 2. Also, I wrote down it'll open a can of worms with all the camping. I also think the ground would be dampered. I think there might be a lot of ground upkeep after the fact, even though they said there wouldn't. And I like the idea. I just don't like the idea around here in our township properties.
Thank you, Councillor Cabral, and then Hannah, and then Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I noticed that it came before us before, I guess we heard about this. There was a staff report coming up. And they did host it in 2019, but I'm not aware of when it might have been approved at that time. But to be quite frank, my biggest concern, and the reason I can't support option number 1, is I have absolutely no idea where we're going to be with COVID-19. And given that they're talking 500 people at 6 feet between one another, I think they'd need about 50 or 60,000 square feet to accommodate them standing still. So I can't support it today.
Councillor Hannah.
Thank you. My question was just, when this has happened in 2019, did they stay overnight? Was there any camping allowed at that time?
Coordinator Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through to Councillor Hannah. So in 2019, the event did occur at Tree Nursery Sports Park, and there was overnight camping at that time.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Moore, then Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. When I read the report, it said that things went fairly smoothly in 2019, and that approval was before my time. So I'm not going to vote for option 1. I prefer to vote for option 2, which I probably would have done back then also. I would support the Kennel Club having a day event, but not the overnight camping.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you, maybe to Coordinator Dean. I'm of the understanding that the overnight camping was an added, maybe we'll call it surprise, to the municipality in 2019, maybe not approved by council. So I think that is an important note too, that because it did occur doesn't mean that it was approved or sanctioned by this municipality. So I would not have supported it then, and I don't support it now.
Coordinator Dean, then I see CAO Schmidt has something to add.
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. In 2019, I do not believe there was a presentation made to council or a staff report that came forward to council for council's approval to the, I guess it would be the amendment to the bylaw. I believe at the time it was approved with the part of the Director of Recreation and Parks.
CAO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's correct. Coordinator Dean's comments are correct. And just further to the overnight piece, to put it somewhat politely, it was a little bit of a surprise to the township. So it was something that we ended up accommodating somewhat last minute, if you will. And so I'll stop there, and if there's further questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
Okay, so I think we're going with option 2. We have a mover and seconder that the report from the Recreation and Special Events Coordinator regarding the request from the Barrie Kennel and Obedience Club for overnight camping at Tree Nursery Sports Park dated Feb 17, 2021 be received, and that the council does not approve the 2021 Barrie Kennel and Obedience Club request for overnight camping at Tree Nursery Sports Park. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to the action reports. We have 8, 2, 3, and 4. I presume we're going to be pulling 4. Any questions or desire to pull 8.2 and 8.3? But before, let's get them on the floor. Councillor Moore and Councillor Cabral. Councillor Moore.
8.3, please.
Pulled or question?
Pulled, please.
Okay, Councillor Cabral.
That was the same one, Mayor Allen.
Okay, Councillor Hannah.
8.2, please.
All right, so we're pulling each of them. So in order as they appear, 8.2, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment on Hale Mahone's question period submission about the heritage designation for the Midhurst Community Hall. And again, to echo what he said, to thank council and thank the committee for moving it forward. And particularly, I like the appendix draft because it does go into a bit of detail, commenting on the events and the highlights that took place going back to 1855. Well, the building is spectacular, that it's an old building, but the events that took there, the importance to the community, I think are captured to some degree in the appendix. So I think that's important that people who want to know what happened at the Midhurst Community Hall and why it's being designated should make sure they read that appendix. Thank you.
So you're moving the recommendation in 8.2, Councillor Hannah?
That is correct. Thank you.
A seconder, please, for that. Councillor Maude Chapman. That the report from the Deputy Clerk regarding the Midhurst Community Centre identification of heritage attributes dated Feb 17, 2021 be received, and that Council approve the following heritage attributes to be provided within the Notice of Intention to designate an heritage designation bylaw for the Midhurst Community Centre. Number 1, Vesper Township Vault/safe located on the lower floor. 2, original upstairs room layout. 3, original concrete foundation and exterior structure. 4, exterior concrete buttresses and abutments. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 8.3, mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Cabral and Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So I have an issue with putting up parking signs for this trailhead. All of our trailheads have a similar problem with parking and vehicles up and down a road potentially or on the property. This particular trail, I realize it's an unopened road allowance, but for years now it's been used as a trail. People can park, like you can see in the picture, maybe a half a dozen cars. And from what I understand in the report, we've had a couple of complaints, possibly from the Snowmobile Club. I'm not quite sure who the complaints are from, but putting up no parking signs and ticketing people, first of all, I think that it's inconsistent. And secondly, it's not going to stop people from parking there. People are still going to park on the side of the road. They're maybe going to walk a little further, but the cars are still going to be there. So a solution, and the only thing that I can truly think of is to maybe push back some of the trees and allow for more cars to park there. I see that the signs the Snowmobile Club have put up look good, the fence looks good, and I think that there's other solutions that we could potentially look at instead of putting up for no parking signs and potentially ticketing folks.
Okay, go to CAO Schmidt and then Officer Kellington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just further to Councillor Moore's comments. So one of the things, Councillor Moore, that we're currently working with the developers in that area on is for some potential temporary parking at their the parking lot that they're going to be constructing for the sales office, which I believe their timeline, I believe, would be May or June of this year, in around that time. So obviously not something that's going to be immediate, but it is something that could potentially alleviate some of the parking on that roadway. Obviously, though, they would be in competition with potential home buyers, which obviously they would probably take first priority over anybody else wanting to access the trails. In addition to that, long term, we are trying to work with the developers in that area to come to a long-term or a more permanent solution. Obviously, the individuals living in that area or that will be moving to that area at some point in the future, that will be an added feature for them, and hence the developers understand the significance of that trail and want to enhance that trail. And through that, maybe we can also have them look at different ways to potentially assist us with some additional parking, as you mentioned. How that happens, I'm not sure, but again, through discussions with them, we can walk that path with them. And I'll leave it at that. And if our Officer Kellington had anything further, by all means.
Go ahead, Officer Kellington.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Moore. As CAO Schmidt had mentioned, we will definitely speak with them and with the developers to find out that hopefully we can have that parking area. And then moving forward, we can look at alternatives for that trailhead. What happens though is that in the winter, it does become the OFC trail. So it's a snowmobile trail. And that's what staff had put up, was the snow fence and those signs temporarily right now for people not to park within that area, because we were having issues with the groomers, as well as safety concerns for people that were parking and trying to move with walkers going down the trails. So we have been monitoring that area for the parking because it is a safety concern. And this is staff's recommendation to have the no parking signs, but we can definitely look at other alternatives.
When you say look at other alternatives, what do you envision, Officer Kellington?
Through you, to you, Mayor Allen, we can look and speak with the developers to find out if we can possibly have that parking lot in the future, and or, as Councillor Moore had mentioned, moving back the trees, removing some of the trees, and then having a little parking area there. Similar to what has the County of Simcoe has on Snow Valley Road. They do have a small parking lot for that trail, but a lot of residents I find that are coming from the city of Barrie, they are not aware of this parking lot, and we do have a lot of people that just park on the side of the road and that are within the trailhead.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so further to Officer Kellington's comments there, another option might be for us to consider signage that indicates to individuals that there is parking off of Snow Valley Road as opposed to Carson Road. So that might be another option or alternative that we could look at, just posting signage. And again, some of these individuals either are aware and just are going to park no matter what. But again, if we can minimize and maybe redirect traffic to the parking lot that's already there on Snow Valley, that might assist as well. So we could look at that as another option as well.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I kind of like what CAO Schmidt is saying about another option, directing traffic down to Snow Valley Road there. Like, it'd be nice, like with the road allowance that we have there. Of course, we can't do anything right now. It's in February. We got a lot of snow, but once the snow goes, if we were to have the roads department go take a look at that and come back with a report on this, how big of a job would it be to fix it up and put a bit of a parking lot in there, trim maybe a bit of the trees back, put some gravel in there, and proper signage, proper parking would eliminate and not be relying on the developer all the time. Maybe they'll come over and help put some kind of a parking lot. That might, rather this COVID thing has caused a lot of people to get out and go for walks and do something. They got to do something. I don't think putting us that no parking is going to work. They're just going to go and park there anyway. So I think if we can bite the bullet until the weather gets better, we could accommodate and be win-win for both sides. Thank you.
CEO Schmidt, do you have any comments with respect to that?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything further in that regards. Well, I guess maybe I do, in the sense of if Councillor Ritchie is looking for staff to come back with another option with regards to our roads department, something we could take a look at and determine. And again, maybe that's through partnership with the developer as well, as opposed to having parking on their temporary parking lot, if you will. Maybe trying to have some discussion with them about the trailhead area itself. I haven't had those discussions, but willing to engage in those discussions.
Follow on, Councillor Ritchie.
Mary Ellen, just to follow on with that, like again, I briefly drive by there and I go past there all the time to go to Barrie. Is that if what's the cost to trimming those trees back and opening it up and put proper parking in there on either side and leaving that center open for the winter time for the groomers but find out what would a cost be to open that up, get the trees back, and I think we could put a real nice parking lot in there to accommodate the people wanting to get out and go for a walk. And I think that's something worth exploring, and I would support that going forward. Thank you.
Okay, it sounds like we should refer it back to staff for a bit of further research and possible discussion with the developer. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just can't help but think that the complaints are because the snowmobilers are using the trail presently, and the trail is being used through agreement with the township. But I can tell you, I do not agree with putting no stopping signs up as a way to try and mitigate, the issues that they're having there. I think that's something that we really should only do if there's a reason to actually do it. And, you can park at the side of the road anywhere in the township pretty well. It's a rural area. I would say that maybe, as Councillor Perry said, that maybe it might be worthwhile to look at maybe increasing the shoulder even, so that there is adequate room at the side off the driven portion for people to park. But I don't support putting stop signs or no parking signs there.
Okay.
I don't know if it's worth deferring it or whether we should just vote on the motion as is and find out what we're going to do with respect to the stop sign portion, because I'd like to see it either go forward without the stop sign or come back to us with another alternative.
Does anybody want to put forward an amendment to this? Councillor Moore.
Yes, I'd be happy to, but does the clerk want to speak to it first?
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I have drafted a referral motion for consideration with Councillor Moore seeking to move it, that the motion now before council be referred back to staff to explore alternative options for parking concerns.
Thank you. That's fine.
Seconded. Councillor Maude Chapman. Deputy Mayor Coughlin, did you want to speak onto that?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Marilyn. I think it's great that we're looking for a more permanent solution that may even invite more people to engage in the trails, or at least provide a safer way for people to use our trails. My question is, with speaking to the groomer not being able to fit through and the accessibility issues, if we don't add these, does that alleviate those issues for bylaw, or are we not solving the interim problem? Because I would like to see us refer this regardless, because I think there needs to be a more permanent solution. But is there still support from council to ensure that the groomer can get through and the more people using the trail is being navigated properly through bylaw?
Yes. Does anybody need rereading of the motion? Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to 8.4, the community broadband. Mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Moore, Councillor Mott Chapman. I'll start just by turning it to CEO Schmidt just for an overview and possible any extra points over and above the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to members of council. So you may recall back in January, there was a direction by council for staff to go back and essentially bring forward next steps as it relates to community broadband in the township and more from a active advisory support role, if you will. And so in doing so, staff did reach out to one of our other neighboring municipalities, Oro, who has actually created a community broadband task force. And we, through those discussions, it was thought that we could bring forward this to council for consideration, whereby it seemed like, at the last meeting, when this came up, there was interest from certain members of council that they wanted to be maybe a little bit more involved. Obviously, didn't want to commit any financial support to any players, but definitely, I think there's still a role that the township could play. And whether it be actively engaging some of the Rogers, the Bells, or maybe even some of the other smaller players that submitted through our expression of interest, and or potential other ones that didn't, that they may be interested in. They might be able to help some of our residents with some of their concerns with regards to broadband or unreliable broadband. But again, it might just be a matter of the township providing some of those references, if you will, or sources to residents so that they have another avenue to potentially look at, as opposed to always being committed and or not knowing exactly who all the players are in the community. So that was kind of the idea. And through that, we thought we would have a couple of members of council be on the board or on the committee. We also thought that it would be appropriate to, if we could, have a representative, a community representative from each ward, so that there was representation from each ward, that each one of those individuals would have obviously some background in community broadband and or internet services, and obviously an interest. And then, of course, we would establish a terms of reference for this committee to ensure that everybody understood exactly what their mandate was. And then this committee could report back to council on a quarterly basis with any updates as may be appropriate. And I'll maybe leave it at that and try to answer any questions that council may have.
Councillor Hannah.
Thank you. Through you to the CEO Schmidt. Would you please confirm, so I make sure I'm not confused on this, but when this was discussed before, there was suggestion about an RFP, request for financial proposal, if you like. And I believe you stated that if we were to go out and ask for an RFP and there were private industries come back with suggestions, we would be required to accept one of those financial quotes, if you like. Is that correct?
CEO Schmidt.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hannah. So yes, Councillor Hannah, at a high level, I guess, whenever you go out with a request for proposal, you are essentially going through a competitive procurement process. And so because of the arrangement that we have, we essentially would be engaging any potential vendors, and we would, anybody that's submitting would be thinking that, hey, what, if I'm going to submit, then I have an opportunity for, obtaining a contract with the township, right? So that is kind of the formal procurement process. With that said, there are always outs, if you will, from a township perspective, whereby, in those particular cases, if the request is way over budget, obviously council is not going to or might not accept it unless they found additional funds. And or if the scope changed, if the scope drastically changed, then we could have a way out of the RFP. But beyond that, you are really committing yourselves to an RFP. That's not what we're suggesting through this tonight, though. Just to make sure everybody's clear, we're not requesting an RFP at this stage.
Follow on.
Thank you. I needed to clarify that because I had received inquiries, and my understanding as well, if I'm not wrong, that we could be in some financial litigation or financial responsibilities if we didn't have a reasonable excuse for not accepting a bid once we had requested financial proposals. Is that correct?
CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hannan. That's my understanding, Councillor Hannan. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, other comments? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess my comment with respect to this, given the meeting that we had and some of the comments that were made at the prior council meeting with respect to an advocacy role and advisory and support and kind of bringing the people who are looking for better internet with the ISP providers that might be in a position to provide that. I've thought about it a bit, and I think that this particular committee is more formal than is what is needed. I actually, when we were initially broached the subject and started kind of looking to put something together, there was interest from a couple of councillors. I kind of thought that we would have kind of like an ad hoc committee, maybe 2 or 3 councillors and a couple of staff members that would meet in order to do 3 things: seek out the people that are in a position to provide the services, and then identify the areas in our township that are inadequately being served in the short term, because I'm really hoping that the Rogers thing moves forward and nice things happen. But I'm just thinking that this is a bit too formal. I think it should just be an ad hoc committee, loosely knit, that can meet without a lot of formality and still be able to present to council.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to council. Just to provide some clarity on what requirements would be of any committee of council, whether it's an ad hoc committee. An ad hoc really just means it's established for a specific use for a temporary purpose. So whether it's an advisory committee and ad hoc committee, it doesn't matter what label you put on it, it still does need to be formal. If we were to go with the format that you suggested, Councillor Cabral, of just a few members of council and a few members of staff, the terms of reference would look like they do in front of you, just with the removal of the community members. So no matter what the requirements under the Municipal Act for it to be an open meeting, have agendas, it would be through this format, through Zoom, open to the public. So all of those requirements and the formalities would still be expected of a committee, no matter what the label we would put on it.
Follow on.
Thank you. I guess I misunderstood, because I thought we did have some loose-knit groups and committees within the organization that did meet at various times, and well, they weren't public, to be quite honest, and there was no public input. So that's why I thought that maybe there was the possibility of doing it. I just see this as, let's march forward and try and advocate and bring it together. We know what people are looking for. We know that the township has certain pockets that are definitely inadequately served. And we know that we can reach out to the ISPs that are currently providing service in town as the starting point. We could do that rather quickly. I just think by the time we get everything in place with this outside of staff and council, at least to get the preliminaries going, it'll be further on down the road once again. So that's the only reason I'm bringing it up. I don't know if one member from each ward, that would then make it, I think, a little bit more onerous than it needs to be.
Other comments? Councillor Hannah?
I would support having just staff and members of council initially, and then after that, see where it goes. There may or may not be a need to engage with the local residents, one from each ward, in that we would have 5 people representing 20,000 people. So I would think it'd be proper to start with just members of council and staff initially, and then consider moving it and expanding if it's necessary after that.
Other comments, Councillor Ma?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a question. If we involved the 5 public members, we'd have to pay them like we do the rest of the committees that we have now. Am I correct?
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just one moment. I am reviewing the draft terms of reference.
While you're doing that, CEO Schmidt has his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The intent was not for the community members to be reimbursed or to have any remuneration. The idea is to it's similar to what's happening in Oro-Medonte. They went out and they sought they sought representation from each ward. Whether they got it, I'm not exactly sure. I don't think they got full representation from each ward, but I think the intent is just to allow the community to get involved, and also, we definitely have some individuals in the community that are much more experienced and technical in this area than I am, and I can't speak for anybody else, but they might have a lot to bring to this committee, and educate, and also have many other options that they might be able to provide to the township that right now we're not even considering. So that was kind of the thought, but it wasn't meant to pay anybody, if you will. It was more kind of reaching out to the community to see, hey, if anybody has an interest in this and understands that right now community broadband is pretty significant and will continue to be, and so if they had some extra time to spare and wanted to try to assist and try to move the township forward, which could benefit their area of the community and or the greater community of Springwater, then that was kind of the thought. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Other comments? Okay, this so we've talked about each councillor wanting to be on this, so from each ward, and we've talked about not initially having public involvement. Does somebody want to put forward an amendment to this then, Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn. I think that there might be an opportunity to form this committee or ad hoc committee with members of council, and then go out to the public. And there may not. We might receive an abundance of people wanting to sit on it, and we might receive 2 or 3 people with expertise in the area. I think that decision can be made. But I do agree with Councillor Cabral. My intention was much like the meeting that we had, just to continue to move forward. If there is a possibility to learn from our residents who are more experienced in this, I would absolutely like that opportunity. But as far as having another committee to advise council, I'm here nor there on that issue.
Okay, so Clerk Ainsworth, can we tweak this then to incorporate what we've discussed?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So the main motion does state that the draft terms of reference be brought back to council at the next meeting for approval. The terms of reference do need to be approved by bylaw. So as the draft terms of reference include the 5 members of the public, if council would like to remove that, there would need to be an amendment submitted to amend the draft terms of reference to remove that provision, which I have drafted that amendment should somebody wish to table it. The other provisions in the motion that would need to be dealt with as well are who the council member representatives would be, as well as any additional information that council would like to see included in the mandate of the terms of reference for the committee. There is a broad description in section 1 of the draft terms of reference, but there also is a section that provides an area where council may wish to give the committee specific responsibilities or specific targets to meet through its mandate.
Okay, comments on that, council? Councillor Hannah?
I support removing the 5 members of the public at this time. And further to what the deputy was saying and George or Councillor Cabral, I think following their initial meetings, a public meeting might be a wise thing to have and get engagement from people across the township, not just 5 people. So I would support removing that and even adding consideration to future public meetings.
Okay, other comment? Clerk Ainsworth and Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. It might help to gear the conversation if the 5 members are dealt with at this time, and then council can get into the discussion regarding the mandate and the council composition on the committee.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you. So it's a formal amendment then to remove, yes. So then I would look for a seconder and putting forward a formal amendment to have the 5 members, 5 official members from the community removed from the terms of reference, understanding that this committee would seek public engagement and input less formally.
Okay, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I wonder if it would be appropriate, not necessarily through the motion, but if staff might be able to prepare a bit of a survey that might be also brought forward at the next meeting, so that we can start to at least put out some feelers to the public as to what their needs might be, whether they're adequately served, whether they're not, what they're looking for, that kind of thing. Is that something that we might be able to kind of put in the works now, as opposed to waiting until the committee is actually formed?
Well, I think that would be something that we're trying to get the composition of the committee, so we're narrowing that down. I think that would be something that the committee in their first meeting might consider is how to get input, and that would be a possibility. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. If the 5 members of the public are being removed from the terms of reference for the committee, then as soon as the terms of reference are approved at the next meeting, the committee could start meeting almost immediately, because we would remove that process of trying to seek public members and having them appointed.
Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was just going to say about the survey after we form our committee, and then we can put that out. Exactly what you just said.
Okay, so it's the interest then of each of the ward councillors to be on this. Is that my understanding? And Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. It would be appropriate to only have 3 members of council sit on the committee. If there is one from each ward, it might as well be all of council that just sits as a special meeting versus creating a committee for this.
Okay, so who would be interested in sitting on this committee then? Is that a request to speak, Deputy Mayor Coughlin? Go ahead.
Thank you, Marilyn. I'm still looking for a seconder for the amendment that I put forward to have the members of the public officially removed as part of the terms of reference.
Councillor Ma is seconding that. So who would be interested in sitting on this? Councillor Cabral?
Mayor Allen, since I was fairly vocal and at the council meeting as far as advocating was concerned, and I do have knowledge of internet and broadband and whatnot, I'm prepared to sit on the committee. Certainly open to 3 other members sitting on it instead, though, but I'm certainly agreeable to be part of it as well.
Thank you. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you. Everybody knows my technical skills are legendary, or lack of them, I should say. But if nobody else is interested, I have been involved in private industry, so I would be willing to step up if there's nobody else that's able to do it.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you. And with the advice or with the request of Clerk Ainsworth, I'm just looking to resolve the first issue of having that removed. So the vote on the amendment that I put forward hasn't taken place. And then Clerk Ainsworth had asked for the 3 names to subsequently follow. So we still haven't voted on having the members of the public removed as part of the terms of reference.
Yes, I was trying to get it all incorporated, but fair enough. So we are voting on the amendment, which has been seconded. Any further clarification needed for that before we vote? All those in favor of the amendment? That is carried. Okay, now we're moving on to members who are interested in being on the committee. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Hannah so far, and Deputy Mayor Coughlin. So those are 3. And any other comments on that then? Okay, that is fine. So Clerk Ainsworth, what do we need to finalize this motion then?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So I have included the 3 names within the motion. Now the outstanding item is to advise if there are any additional pieces to the mandate that council would like to see. I am adding in that a public survey take place by the committee, and just seeking council's input on any additional items to the mandate.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just wondering whether or not we should be identifying a couple of staff members, or would it just be appropriate to work with staff?
CEO Schmidt, how would you like to handle that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think at this point, it would probably be myself, as well as looking at 1 or 2 of our IT staff that might be able to sit on this committee as well. And then to the extent that minutes are required, then obviously we would need some support from the clerk's department as well. But beyond that, if we needed additional support from staff, we could do so. But I think for now, that's probably what we'd be looking at. And I think just from the mandate perspective, to the clerk's comments, Councillor Cabral mentioned earlier, and don't want to speak for you by all means, Councillor Cabral, but you'd indicated, about identifying the specific ISP providers, if you will, in the community, but also looking at maybe through that survey as well. And part of that survey is identifying the underserved areas in the township, and then trying to hook up, if you will, the ISPs and the community members in those underserved areas to see if there's some kind of a way to provide them with a better level of service.
I certainly, I had made some comments to CEO Schmidt of suggestions that the committee might pursue, and that would be there were some good materials at the Roma conference. It was a very talked about topic, so it would be good for the committee to review some of those materials and get ideas of what other communities are doing with community broadband. trying to get to Rogers to find out more details of what their plans might involve, trying to get to Bell to find out in conjunction with SWIFT, more specifically, what specific areas are going to be covered by the SWIFT approved project going forward. Those were some of the things that I think would be useful to glean. Any other comments then? Okay, so to finalize this, Clerk Ainsworth, what motion do we need?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So I've added, based on the discussion, I've added some items into the motion, and I can read the final motion if you'd like.
Please.
That the report from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding community broadband next steps dated February 17th, 2021 be received, and that Council consider forming a Community Broadband Advisory Committee, and that the following 3 members of Council be appointed to the Community Broadband Advisory Committee: Councillor Cabral, Councillor Hanna, and Deputy Mayor Coughlin, and that the draft terms of reference attached as Appendix A be brought forward for consideration by bylaw at the March 3rd, 2021 regular meeting of Council, and that the draft terms of reference be amended to remove the provisions for inclusion of 5 general public members. And that Council hereby directs that the mandate of the committee also include creation and release of a survey for public input of broadband service needs, identifying underserviced areas in the township, and identifying potential internet service providers, and that the advisory committee report back to Council on a quarterly basis as appropriate.
Thank you. I think that captures the discussion. And we have a mover and seconder for that? Yes. Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Good discussion. Okay, we're moving on to information reports, item 9.1. A mover and seconder to get those on the floor, please. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma Chapman. There are 8 items, sorry. Any questions with respect to any of these? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's just a question really with respect to the building permit activity summaries.
Yes.
When we're talking about building permits issued and inspections being made, is there any type of way that we can identify subsequent inspections, or are they all captured? They all captured at the same time for a particular building permit that's been issued. Just when I'm trying to follow it, there's likely an overlap on the inspections. I'm wondering if there's any way that we can identify which ones came first versus which ones are coming second based on the number of building permits that are issued. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm directing it towards Director Ippolito. He might be able to help me with that.
Please, Director Ippolito.
Through the mayor, and if I can ask for clarification, and maybe I'll ask the question, are you looking to determine how old, if these inspections that we're undertaking currently under these reports, how far back they basically stretch?
Well, I guess in a roundabout way, if somebody had a building permit for a brand new house, there would be certain times that the inspector would visit, whereas the building permit shows up as one particular piece, the inspections might show up over a period of time. So either what the average would be for a building permit, and even that, I guess, depending on what category it fits into, would also result in either more or fewer visits. I'm just curious if there's any way that, I don't know, I don't want to use the word identify, but whether or not, like, say, for example, when we're looking at September and we have inspections 279, would there be a way for us to know how many of those were re-inspections, or is that a lot to ask?
Director?
through the mayor to Councillor Cabral. I could do it. Based on our software right now, I think the only way I could do it is if I printed the report and actually manually counted them. That way as re-inspections.
Would it be okay if I connected with you after the meeting? If it's too much work, it's not worthwhile. It's just when I was looking at the numbers and I'm looking at how many permits are issued, and then I look at the number of inspections, like to me, I don't know how they correlate, I guess is what I'm trying to figure out. So maybe I can touch base with you later, and if it's going to be too onerous, I won't be seeking that information, that's for sure. But
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I'll let you follow up.
Thank you.
Any other questions with respect to the reports? All right, so the recommendation is that report items listed herein be received as information. The building permit activity summary for September, October, November, and December 2020. The bylaw activity report, January 2021. The drinking water systems inspection report for Hillsdale and Snow Valley. The SU-220-002 and ZB 220-017. The estate of Marie Louise Frankham at 124 Doran Road, and the virtual Roma 2021 annual conference. All those in favor? That is carried. On to verbal reports in item 10.1 and 2, Director Spagnell, official plan and economic development, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a reminder to council that the stakeholder meeting for the official plan review will be occurring on Tuesday, February the 23rd. Again, I'll just note that at 2 p.m. There will be a session for the agencies and municipalities that have indicated an interest, and then at 6 p.m. The session will be open to members of the public. There will be a Q&A provided as part of that session, whereby any participating members can submit questions to WSP or the presenter, at which point township staff through the process will be continuing to receive comments on the materials that have been posted on the website. I'm available to answer any questions that council may have at this time.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Thank you. 10.3 Midhurst Development Update, CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, so the servicing as it relates to the subdivision has started, and so they're starting with storm and sanitary sewer work, so that's underway. In addition to that, there has been, or there will be, additional signage installed on Carson Road, just due to the level of activity on Carson Road with more and more materials being delivered onto the site. And lastly, the contractor is now mobilizing and is getting ready to remove trees on the utility campus, which is the property on the north side of Snow Valley. That's all I have for tonight, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to answer any questions with regards to that.
Any questions with regards to that? Moving on to COVID-19 update, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just a couple of things here with COVID. So as everybody's aware, the province announced that effective yesterday, February 16th, it was returning 27 public health units to its new amended COVID-19 response framework, and that the stay-at-home order would no longer be in effect for these public health units. With that said, there's 4 remaining public health units, Toronto, Peel, York Region, and North Bay Prairie Sound, that are to remain in shutdown, and the stay-at-home order is still in effect for those public health units. This decision was made by the province and was based on general improvement in trends of key indicators, including lower transmission of COVID-19, improving hospital capacity, and available public health capacity to conduct rapid case and contact management. So the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, which includes the Township of Springwater, is one of the 27 public health units that's moved back to the province's COVID-19 response framework. And we do find ourselves in the red or control zone, which is where we were prior to the Christmas holidays. So due to the timing of the province's recent decision, staff is still working through logistics, and we're currently preparing for a soft reopening of the Township Administration Center tomorrow morning, whereby minimal staff will be in the office and we will be able to assist the public in person. And then on Monday, February 22nd, we are preparing for an official reopening of the Township Administration Center, whereby, again, appointments for the public will be strongly encouraged, and staff will be back to their modified schedule, Team A, Team B, which was in effect prior to the holidays. Further to that, the CCG group, Community Control Group, will be meeting tomorrow. And one of the things that we're going to be discussing is the reconsideration of our position on reopening our outdoor rinks. And so we will aim to have a final decision by the end of day tomorrow. I think one of the things that we want to talk about is knowing that the Elmville Arena will not be reopening for this winter season. The ice has been removed, as previously mentioned, and we were having some challenges with the brine header, if you will, for the Elmville Arena. And so the decision was to remove the ice, and now we're preparing for that repair and maintenance work. So, the township is looking at, the possibility of reopening our outdoor rinks to be able to provide for recreational amenities to our communities. And so, as I said, that will be discussed tomorrow, and we will have a final decision tomorrow on that, with the hopes that we might have some good news to share. And further to that, to date, Springwater has had 171 confirmed cases of COVID-19, of which 150 have now recovered, and we have no new deaths to report. And Mr. Mayor, I think that concludes my update for this evening. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Okay, moving on to county updates. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. At our last meeting, I had informed council that I would have an update on governance, and unfortunately that meeting has been rescheduled, so I do not have an update at this time.
Okay, any municipal updates? Okay, seeing none, we're moving on to 11.1, which is notices of motion. And Councillor Ritchie has a notice of motion. Is there a seconder for this notice of motion? Councillor Moore. So I'll turn it to Councillor Ritchie initially.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Be it resolved, you're asking me to read the notice of motion?
No, it's okay, Councillor Ritchie. I think we'll read it. Just wondered whether traditionally when a councillor puts forward a notice of motion, I give them a chance to comment on it if they want to comment on it before we open it up for discussion.
Thank you for the ability to comment. I've been speaking about this since we did our last budget. I brought this forward. I've spoken to the other councillors that I know that are in favor of this. Mayor Allen, I feel there's a disconnect. Every time we go to do a budget, we see one thing from staff and we're asking for one thing, and it's become a disconnect. We need to get together, get on the same page, and that's why I'm pushing forward. I'm wanting to move forward with this to get everybody on board to say, yes, this is what we need. And I'm hoping that by getting some involvement in this, we'll open our eyes as council and working with staff to move forward, to move the municipality forward. And I think this is a step in the right direction. And I ask for support in this. In doing this, and I ask that staff work with us. We want to be part of it, and I think this is much needed. I'll leave it at that. I believe those positions are filled too as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up for comments, questions from council. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you, I definitely would like to be part of a committee that is put in place for efficiencies or service delivery audit. My concern at this point is that there is currently direction from this council to our staff to have us review the existing SDR that's been done. I think that we've, if I'm not mistaken, spent about $70,000 on it. And this council is yet to sit round table to go through what we have determined from it. know that there's a differing opinion on the results from it. However, I think that we do, in order to best to determine the scope for an additional audit, we need to at least take a look at this one, determine what results we have concern with, what areas we want to focus on. But I think that we did spend the money, and we should at least follow through with the resolution that is in front of council previously, was to bring this forward in the first quarter. So I believe there is a meeting in March set to go through the existing SDR. And I think before we create a committee to have a scope for another SDR, we should go through the one that we've done already. I think that the last link that CAO Schmidt provided to us on service delivery reviews, that seminar did produce that what you look for is what you will find. And I think that this is a great idea that we as a council should come together to determine what it is that we're looking for. However, I think that we do that through examining the SDR that we have in place. It was done, I believe 80% of our employment was surveyed, and council was surveyed as well. So there is some information there that we should at least go through prior to forming a new committee to look at a new SDR, because otherwise, if we don't even take a look at it, it's $70,000 that we just threw out the window.
Thank you, Councillor Cabral, and then Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. With respect to this particular motion, I'll be frank, I was disappointed with the service delivery review we got before, because in my opinion, it was top heavy. It looked more at administration. It looked at the future of our organization, dealing with the Midhurst secondary plan. It attempted to look at north and south, which even at this council meeting, there seemed to be some disparity there earlier on. This particular motion, I don't see any problem in creating this committee now. They can certainly make use of and reflect on the information that the consultants provided from the first one. But I think that this particular motion here is far more granular. It's at the bottom. It's based on how our staff are delivering our services, how they interact with one another, that type of thing. And I think that this particular motion in creating that committee, it would be fine, I think, for us to have it dealt with today. They don't need to specifically start putting things into play right away, but I don't see any benefit in holding off creating this particular committee, because there may be some preparatory work that they might be able to put into place moving forward before the next meeting when we discuss the prior service delivery review. So just my thoughts on it there.
Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I am going to support this motion moving forward tonight, and I'd put my name forward to be on the committee if Councillor Ritchie would so desire. I think that we can use the report we were provided. We're going to be using the same consultant that did the original report, and I'd like to put that as maybe our first term of reference to review that consultant's report and sort of tease out what we liked and what we didn't like, because there was value there. I'm not going to say that it was completely invaluable. So, but again, like Councillor Cabral has mentioned, it wasn't quite granular enough for me either in order to help me when it comes to budget decisions. So, but I'm in favor of moving this forward this evening.
Thank you. Councillor Hanna.
I support moving this forward as well. I would be willing, if it's appropriate, if through the clerk, to have maybe a training session with just council, the clerk, and the CAO, maybe a director of finance as well, to go through the previous report we received and take a look at what, if any value we find out of that, and where there's possibly any shortcomings that can be identified to help who's ever on the committee going forward to the next one. If it's appropriate to have such a training session, I think that would satisfy maybe to some degree the deputy mayor's suggestion as well. to take whatever we can out of that report.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Hannah. That direction has already been provided by Council back in October of 2020. There is a motion from Council that, actually, I do have it up. Let me read it. That the 9 recommendations in the report be deferred to a special meeting at Council once the 2021 budget process is complete, and that the special meeting be scheduled prior to the end of the first quarter of 2021. March 22nd had been earmarked for the date to have that special meeting. So that direction has already been provided by Council.
Thank you. I'm suggesting a training session just with Council. So obviously it would be a closed session and the CAO and yourself.
Okay, follow on, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. Through you to Councillor Hannah, can I just ask for clarification on what you would be seeking training on?
Yes, I think that we need to discuss it in closed session, the report that we received from the consultant, because I have concerns in there, and I think some other members of Council do, but we're all trying to be polite here and not say anything that's inappropriate. But during a closed session, we can get down to the nuts and bolts, if you like. So going forward, we do it what needs to be done.
Okay, other comments? Did you have a comment, Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mary Ellen, through you. Just on its surface, the review of the 9 recommendations from the first service delivery review would not qualify for a closed session. If there are additional concerns that Council might want to discuss, they may want to reach out to the CAO to get that conversation started. But as a review of the 9 recommendations, it does not qualify to be in closed session.
Okay, Councillor Ritchie.
Mayor Allen, I just wanted to mention this, this other 9 recommendations that we were going to talk about prior to the end of our first quarter. I believe it's coming up in March that the clerk just mentioned about. We can still address those, and anything out of that meeting might help us with this one here moving forward. So I don't see it stopping us from moving forward with this, and we can take it and add it to the audit that we're going to do moving forward. So I don't see why we need to wait till March. I'd like to move forward with this. I see Councillor Moore put her name forward. I've put my name forward, and I believe Councillor Cabral was put his name, but I'll let him speak. And I'll just wrap it up by saying I'd like a recorded vote on this. Thank you.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just want to make a point regarding the appointment of members to the committee. This motion does not seek to appoint specific members. Just in regards to the process, if this motion does move forward as is, the next part of the process would see staff creating and drafting a terms of reference, just like you saw earlier for the Broadband Advisory Committee, and coming forward to Council at a future meeting to have Council approve the terms of reference by bylaw. And at that time, we would seek the member appointments from Council for that committee. So at this time, Councillor Ritchie's motion doesn't request who will be appointed, just that a committee be struck of 3 members.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just further to some of the comments, I just wanted a little bit of clarity as it related to, was it Council's intent to use the same consultant, or because I was a little bit confused there. I heard yes, maybe, and then other times maybe not. So just trying to clarify whether or not the intent is to continue with the consultant that we used for the original SDR, which, if that's the case, then I might have some further comments on process. But if the intent is to go out to secure or engage a totally separate consultant, then I'll leave my comments as is.
Councillor Cabral and Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess with respect to there'll be an RFP that goes out, I would think. I don't know whether or not we'd like or want to specifically use that particular consultant. There may be another consultant out there that certainly might be better equipped and in doing an actual service delivery type of bottom-up audit per se, not just that. But I would like to propose a motion to the notice of motion before us right now that does identify the members for it. That'll expedite it and it'll get it moving a lot quicker. I certainly don't have a problem with those that have put their names forward already. Councillor Ritchie proposed the motion, and I'm happy to see Councillor Ritchie's name be added. And I don't see why we can't do that right now. And I'd propose that if there's other members that want to be part of it. I think I heard the deputy mayor say that they did. And there was, I think also, was it Councillor Moore? I certainly don't have any objections to those names, or if anybody else wants to put their name forward, I think we should look at doing that right now and make the amendment to include those names and move forward with the motion.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to go back to the CAO's question about the consultant, I feel like we've spent a lot of money on that consultant's review, and the surveys were done. There's some solid information there that I think we could take from it. I don't know why we wouldn't go back to them and ask them to do what we really need. They've done maybe the high level piece, and now we could ask them to build on that. So I'm not opposed to using the same consultant. And again, I mean, unless Councillor Ritchie, you have a burning desire to use somebody else.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and just thanks for clarifying that, Councillor Moore and Councillor Cabral. So the reason I asked is obviously if the direction was to continue with the existing consultant, then preference would be is to really deal with the 9 recommendations that are currently on the table and maybe proceed with that March 22nd meeting or whatever the date is. And at that point, then really drill into the areas of concern. And then that may actually create a better focused efficiency audit, if you will, for this next piece. So I throw that on the table. But if the intent is not, like I'm hearing some mixed signals, I guess, maybe about the consultant, and maybe you weren't as happy. And so if you're not, then I would suggest maybe not using that same consultant and going with somebody else, which obviously what I just said is kind of out the window. But if you do want to continue with the same consultant, they do have a little bit of history on the township, and like I said, I would propose what I just mentioned. But again, it's totally in council's hands as to how you want to proceed.
Councillor Maud Chapman, then Councillor Hannah. Councillor Ma, can you unmute there? No, you didn't get it.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Sorry, I was frozen. Everyone's on Netflix, so I agree with using the same consultant and maybe take what we get out of this and use the same consultant just because we've already used them, and just elaborate on what we are looking for. I don't have a problem with this sort of committee, and I don't have a problem being on it. I'm not sure if we can all be on it or if you just pick 3, but I think if we use the same consultant, as Councilor said, and just elaborate more in depth on what they've done and where we want to see it go. I don't think they gave us that really deep information, and I think this is what this is for me, I believe.
Councillor Hannah. Oh, just pause for a sec. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Councillor Cabral did request an amendment to the motion, so I have drafted that. If that could be dealt with, unless Councillor Cabral is removing his request for amendment.
Please review let us hear the draft, please.
Thank you. That the motion now before council be amended as follows. Add, and that the following members of council be appointed to the Efficiency and Service Delivery Audit Committee. And then council would need to request who would be added.
Okay, Councillor Hannah and then Councillor Ritchie.
Well, thank you. My comment about using the same consultant. When we had the engagement meeting with the consultant, I expressed at that time that I would be looking for, when the report came, I'd be looking for individual job descriptions, that I'd be looking for daily activity reports as to what staff do in a day and so on over the week for a period of a month. I also suggested I'd be looking for the mandate, the workload, all those things. And I didn't see any of those things that came forward, other than the impression I got, the consultant based their information that they got on staff interviews. I think we as council need to also understand what staff activities are, what the workload is, what the objectives and mandates, where they need assistance, where they need more technology, more equipment, more staffing. But just to base it on simple interviews didn't work for me. So I would not be opposed to looking out to see what other consultants are available and doing a costing at least to see what the market can give us.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. First off, in regards to the terms of reference, I would, whatever staff brings, I have a concern about this, that staff makes up the rules and then brings it back to us. And then we have the chance to change it if we want, and so be it. And I would imagine that there will be changes because we need to be part of it. And having said that, I think that that needs to be established first, the ground rules, and we need to feel comfortable with that. Then moving forward, I'd be in a position to interview this efficiency audit company, whoever it is that did this, and let us satisfy ourselves whether we go forward with them or we go to the market and get somebody else. So I'd like to put like to answer CAO Schmidt on notice that there is a possibility we might go to the market with for another efficiency audit, so that we're comfortable in moving forward with this and answer the questions that we want answered. Thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So just to say to Councillor Ritchie that whatever you decide regarding the consultant is fine with me, because we've purchased the information. We still have it. We can still review it. We still own it. So I'm fine with whatever you choose.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have an amendment that was put forward by Councillor Cabral, and do we have a seconder for that amendment? Okay, seconder for that amendment, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. So can you read that amendment, please, Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you. The amendment would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows. Add, and that the following members of council be appointed to the Efficiency and Service Delivery Audit Committee. And we are seeking 3 members.
Okay, I heard that Councillor Moore, Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Ma had expressed an interest. Is there anybody else that is interested in Councillor Hannah?
No, sir. I just want to support Councillor Moore, Ritchie, and Cabral to be on the committee.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I had mine up to say that I'm happy. I'm on the other committee that came up prior to. And I know that all members will be able to have input to the committee. So I'm happy to see anyone else that has a desire to be on the committee go on to it. I'd like to see Councillor Ritchie be part of the committee since he's the one who brought the motion forward. But that's just my opinion. I'm happy with whatever councillors.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. I just wanted to ensure that prior to this committee meeting, we would be meeting as a full council in March to still review the 9 recommendations that are moving forward, so that we as a full council can set this direction. Because I do agree that that this SDR moving forward is going to shape the corporation moving forward, and I think that there is a lot of work that needs to be done, not just not on top of which consultant we move forward with. So I agree with Councillor Cabral. I too have been appointed to another committee this evening, and would happy to see Councillor Chapman sit with this committee if she so chooses, or sit on this myself, as long as we understand that this council, I mean, we have yet to hear from our not, I guess, new but not so new CAO. We haven't even had an internal strategic plan for the corporate structure moving forward. So I think that there are a few internal steps that need to take place prior to going external again, starting with the review of the SDR as a council as a whole, and then moving forward from there. So I'm happy to be part of this committee because it is something that intrigues me. I definitely would like to ensure that we, as a council, decide whether we are going to single or sole source the same consultant moving forward. I think that we are a pretty good group when we put our heads together, and I think that if we start with the SDR that we had before, do an internal workshop, as Councillor Hanna had mentioned, even just a training session on what the corporate structure looks moving forward, I think that we'll be well on our way.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like we have Councillor Moore, Councillor Ritchie, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, and Councillor Ma interested in being on this committee. Councillor Ritchie, did you put your card up?
Yes, Mayor Allen. The reason why we had spoken when I was talking to Clerk Ainsworth about members, I was under the understanding the most we could have was 3. You have any more than that, now you've got council. Now you've got a quorum, and you're not, and you're back to square one again. That's why the number 3 was what we struck at, and they have a couple of members of staff. I believe the CAO and the Director of Finance was the 2 members of staff. So that's where the numbers came from. Maybe Clerk Ainsworth can verify that some more, but we need to come back to council anyways with anything we decide to do or want to do. We need to come back to get the finalization from council. So
okay, Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. If Deputy Mayor would want to sit on the board instead of me, I'm fine with that. And if it's, or on this committee, and if I could be, you know, how maybe the backup, if one of them couldn't make it, if that's a possibility, but I will let Deputy Mayor join the committee.
Thank you. Okay, so we have Councillor Moore, Councillor Ritchie, and Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Councillor Ritchie.
Mayor Allen, I think the clerk needs to clarify that the number of people needed that's allowed to sit on this
Clerk
committee.
Ainsworth.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Allen, to council. Councillor Ritchie is correct. 3 members of council for as a maximum for the committee. In the amendment, I will also put that Councillor Chapman would sit as alternate. And also Councillor Ritchie, in your motion for staff resources on the committee, you had identified the Director of Finance as well as the Manager of Human Resources.
My apologies. You're right. I'm sorry. Right.
Okay.
Getting late here.
And the CAO, obviously, right, Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. It is not noted in the motion that Councillor Ritchie brought forward.
Well, the CAO should be included as a staff member. Councillor CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to help, but also willing to step aside and allow the committee to move forward. And if they need assistance, by all means, I can step in to help. But yeah, I'm sure our director of finance and our manager of human resources could stick handle this. And again, if they need additional resources or help, willing to do so.
Okay. Please read the motion then, please, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. So the motion that is on the table currently is the amendment to the main motion, which would need to be dealt with first. And it states that Councillor Moore, Councillor Ritchie, Deputy Mayor Coughlin be appointed to the committee with Councillor Chapman as an alternate member.
Okay. Councillor Ritchie?
Where's Councillor Cabral? He's on there.
No, he backed away because he's on the other committee and we wanted, and there needed to be 3 people. Okay, all those in favor for the amendment, please. That is carried. Main motion, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. I will read the main motion, and also a recorded vote was requested by Councillor Ritchie. And the motion would read, be it resolved that council finds it both prudent and appropriate to undertake an efficiency and service delivery audit to examine and assess Springwater Township's overall operations, including but not limited to service standards, service delivery, administration and structure, governing policies and procedures, equipment and resources, and further that the purpose of the efficiency and service delivery audit is to provide a broad assessment of the operational performance and identify potential areas for improvement and realize any potential efficiencies that may be gained, and that an efficiency and service delivery audit ad hoc committee be struck to include 3 members of council, the Director of Finance, and the Manager of Human Resources for the purposes of drafting a terms of reference and scope for the efficiency and service delivery audit for consideration and approval by council, engaging in the process of the efficiency and service delivery audit by receiving regular updates from the consultant, meeting with the consultants as necessary, and review of the draft report, and that the following members of council be appointed to the Efficiency and Service Delivery Audit Committee: Councillor Moore, Councillor Ritchie, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, and Councillor Chapman as alternate.
Okay, and we have a mover and seconder for that already. So all those, recorded vote.
Thank you. A recorded vote was requested by Councillor Ritchie. When I state your name, please state yes or no. Councillor Cabral?
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie?
Yes.
Councillor Chapman?
Yes.
Councillor Moore?
Yes.
Councillor Hannah?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Yes.
And Mayor Allen?
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you. Are there any other notices of motion? Moving on to 12.1, any items for future consideration? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I apologize. I didn't get my card up fast enough, but I think I'd like to make a notice of motion with respect to the code of conduct. I would like to make a motion that council adopt the code of conduct, which was provided to council members by our current commissioner, Patrick Swayze. I apologize if that's not his name. Moving forward, and that the current code of conduct be repealed.
Okay. Any other notice of motion? Items for future consideration. Okay, moving on to bylaws then. Can I have a mover and seconder for the bylaws? Oh, Clerk Ainsworth has something.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. As the report that accompanied this bylaw was referred to staff, this motion should not go forward this evening.
That's 13-1.
That is correct.
That's, yeah, 13. Okay, so we go straight to confirmatory bylaw 14.
Yes.
Okay, mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Cabral, that the bylaw 2021-018 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on February 17th, 2021, listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? Thank you. And mover and seconder for adjournment, please. Councillor Moore, Councillor Ma, that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 9:19 p.m. to meet again in a regular meeting on March 3rd, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you and good night. Stay well.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.